Hello, true crime fanatics and suspense seekers. I'm your host, Naz.
And I'm Jihan.
Welcome back to Crime Stories of Pakistan. I hope you are all doing well. Sorry for the extended break. However, we are back now. We really missed our true crime family, and that's why we have an exciting lineup for you guys of cases that are literally going to have you jumping off of your seats. I hope you are all just as excited as we are. So, Jihan, today I have a bone chilling case for you that I came across a few years ago when I started getting into true crime. I remember feeling like this case was so messed up and there were so many twists and turns. So, I really hope you are ready to embark on this roller coaster ride with me today. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do this.
Okay. So, this case is an international spanning case as it involves both Canada and the United States. More specifically, Vancouver, which is a city in British Columbia, Canada, and Bellevue, which is a city in Washington, United States. So this is where a Pakistani family had recently moved from British Columbia to Bellevue, United States, and they were found violently murdered in their own home. This is the story of the Rafay family triple murders. I'm going to take you back to the summer of 1994 in Bellevue, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle. A call to 911 was made just after 2 a.m. by a person named Sebastian Burns. He reported that his friend's mom and dad may be dead.
See what are you reporting? I need an ambulance. Okay. What's the problem there? There's been some kind of break-in. Okay, well, just calm down. What's the problem? The two, my friends, his mom and dad, are, we think they're dead. Just calm down. I don't think it's safe here. We'll be outside. Okay, go ahead, go outside. Please, fast, okay? Yes, they're on the way. Okay. They're on the way. We'll be outside. Okay, go ahead.
Sebastian was staying at his friend Atif Rafe's home. Both boys were in their late teens. Sebastian told the police that him and Atif returned home from a night out and found Atif's mother, Sultana, lifeless on the floor. And then he said that they found Atif's father, Tariq Rafe, in another room, also appearing to be dead. He said it looked like a possible break-in, and he urged the police to come quickly. Upon arriving to the crime scene, Sultana and Tariq Rafe were both immediately pronounced dead. But a third victim was also located. This was Atif's older and autistic sister named Basma. She was heard moaning and crying from her bedroom. She was just holding on to her life, but she was taken to the Overlake Hospital and was pronounced dead a few hours later,
Wait,
taking the secret with her as to who had murdered her family.
okay, so 1 second. Sebastian called the police, not Atif.
Mm.
And he only
Yes, Sebastian
and
called.
he only mentioned about Atif's parents, but not the sister.
So I guess at the time when he made the call, he didn't know that there was a third victim, which is kind of strange because Sebastian should have known that there was a third person in the house. But in the phone call, he only mentions the parents.
God. Okay. That's horrible.
Bellevue detective Bob Thompson was on the case from the very first night. He reported that at the crime scene, quote, it had looked like someone had hit Tariq Rafay 40 to 50 times, unquote.
Oh my God.
Well, let's just take a step back for a minute. Who were the Rafays, you might ask? Let me tell you. They were a Pakistani family from Karachi who had recently moved to Bellevue from Vancouver, Canada, due to a job that Tariq Rafay had received. Sultana, the wife, had a master's degree in nutrition, but devoted her life to raising her special needs non-verbal daughter Basma and her son Atif, that she called gifted. Tariq Rafay was a PhD doctor, so you might hear me refer to him as Dr. Rafay throughout the episode. He was a structural engineer who had worked on buildings all around the world, and he was involved in the Canada-Pakistan Friendship Organization.
Okay.
There were initially no suspects, and the police or public could not list anyone who would want to murder this quiet family. As the crime scene was looked at more closely, investigators determined that the doors were neither locked nor broken into. Furthermore, some of the rooms had boxes and paperwork scattered everywhere and drawers opened, but nothing seemed to be missing upon first look. Police had their suspicion that it appeared as if someone had set this up. It almost looked staged. So, Jihan, get this. When police questioned Atif as to what items were missing, he only listed 2 items, his Discman and a VCR.
Oh, hell.
To the police, this seems strange and unlikely that a person would murder 3 people and only walk away with some very worthless and immaterial items. Because keep in mind, even back in the 90s, these things were not worth a lot of money.
Not worth
Also-
killing someone, not worth killing the whole family.
Exactly.
And you had said that Rafay was hit 40 to 50 times.
The father, yes.
So that seems very, very personal. Someone who just came to rob wouldn't just bash someone 40 to 50 times just for a disman.
Because it just seems like a bit of overkill, right? I mean, if you're just coming to do a quick job where you're gonna, steal a couple items, maybe you hit somebody enough to knock them out, but do you really kill them and that many times? I mean, the whole thing just seems really fishy.
Yeah, and was there no money stolen or jewelry stolen?
So, nope, upon investigation, it seemed like nothing else was taken.
Okay, that's strange.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, who is usually the first suspect that police looks into in a case like this?
Always family members.
Exactly.
The only one living.
So, the only one living, exactly. So, Sebastian and Atif were friends from Vancouver, where they attended the same high school called West Vancouver Secondary School. Both had a sarcastic sense of humor and got along very well according to their classmates. Sebastian was the more handsome one between the two. He was more extroverted and dominating, whereas Atif was more quiet and shy. Sarah Isaacs was Sebastian's high school girlfriend. She said, quote, Sebastian helped Atif become more social and dress better. He helped Atif talk to girls and be a stud like he himself was, unquote.
I can understand the attraction or the want to be like Sebastian, especially since you're an expat living in Canada, trying to fit in. So probably like
Exactly.
a role model, right? Atif
Yes,
probably
like a
looked
role
up to
model.
him. Okay.
Mm-hmm. However, Atif was the smarter one out of the two. After high school, he got accepted into Cornell University. And this is an Ivy League college and a very well-known university.
Yeah.
Sebastian ended up going to a community college post-high school. It was the summer after first year post-grad that both boys' lives took a turn. They were both taken in for questioning almost immediately after the investigation began. They both seemed to have a solid alibi. An alibi is a defense and a way to prove that you were not at the location of the murder, and so you could not have committed the crime, as a person cannot be in two places at once. So their alibi was very thorough and detailed. They said at 8 p.m. they went to the Keg Steakhouse, and at 9:50 they went to watch The Lion King at the Cineplex Odeon movie theater. After the movie, they stopped at a pub for a late night snack, and it was here where they left a $6 tip for a $9 tap.
What? We're trying too hard. We're trying too hard to have a strong alibi.
It almost seems as if they purposely went from place to place just so that they could be remembered in case it ever came up. Because who leaves a $6 tip for a $9 tap? Like, that just seems kind of
Very fishy.
Yeah, like it seems
Very,
like you
very
want it to be noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I feel I know where this
One of
is
the
going.
One of the points of questions was Atif's strange behavior at his house when his family was discovered. The police asked him why he didn't rush to help his special needs sister, as she was moaning and crying in pain. In an audio recording of the 911 call, when asked by police how hurt the sister was, Atif replied, quote, "I don't know how hurt she is, but I know that there's nothing I can do," unquote.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's your immediate reaction. The whole aspect of like Sebastian calling 911 and telling them that his friend's parents seem to be dead without even mentioning the sister is suspicious within itself, since they've been friends for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then Atif not knowing how his sister, like whether his sister is dead or alive, without even going to check on her.
Yeah.
How do you know you cannot do anything for her if you have not checked on her? What the hell?
Yeah, it's almost as if like Atif just hated his sister. And that very well could have been the case because she was special needs and maybe the mother was giving her more attention. I mean, naturally, right? So I can sense hatred there. But I have to say, it is really strange that you wouldn't check up on your brutally hurt special needs sister. Like, and then on top of that, there's no panic or sadness in his voice, according to the police.
Right. I just like, I don't get that. Like, I can understand if you're shocked,
Mm-hmm.
but again, if you haven't really gone to check on your sister and you don't know what her position is, how can you know from before that you can't help her unless you know what you've done, which is why you can't help her. He's fishy, he's looking very suspicious, Naz.
I agree. So according to the police, both the boys were initially key witnesses, but they left the police interview as key suspects. Both boys were put in a motel by the police called Bellevue Motel, as Atif wouldn't be able to return home during the forensic investigation, and since Sebastian was visiting Atif, he also had no place to go. So investigators wanted both boys to stay close by so that they could continue their investigation without risking the boys leaving town.
So 1 second, was Sebastian living with Atif?
Yes, so he was visiting for a couple of days, and so that's what I was saying, that he would have known that there was a third person in the house.
Okay, so now it's looking like Atif had some help.
Mm.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing, that as of right now, both of the boys are looking like suspects, but we don't know who did what, and we don't know if they've even done anything, right?
Yeah, but from what you've told us, they're looking hella guilty.
I agree. During the investigation, police also received other leads, including one from an FBI informant who said that someone had offered $20,000 to kill an East Indian family who recently moved to Bellevue from Vancouver. The tips poured in, but like any other investigation, the cops have to vet which ones seem credible and which ones they will pursue. There appeared to be a pattern in the leads, which always led directly to Sebastian and Atif.
You're saying that this family had a hit on them.
That's what one of the FBI informants said.
And was there any reason?
No.
No?
That's the thing, that if the police didn't think that was a credible tip, they weren't going to pursue it. In this case, I don't think they pursued it.
Okay.
Because if they had a hit on them, would the people doing it even bother with the VCR and the Discman?
Yeah, and then why would they not pick a time when all the family members
Yeah.
are present?
Exactly.
Like why would they leave?
What makes Atif special, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Atif and Sebastian's behavior became even more alarming when media tried talking to either of them. They would run away smirking or giggling and use cloth to cover their faces and hide from the cameras. And this is all captured on by the news media. There's footage of this.
So you just lost your mom, your dad, your sister, and you're kikiing on camera?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can send you a link to a news report when this was happening, and honestly, it looks like he's just laughing. He's just having a jolly good day. And it's
like unbothered.
Unbothered completely. Like just, and I know everybody reacts different to trauma. Like I get that. But this just seems really unnatural.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what my reaction would be, but it definitely would not be laughing and covering my face if I had lost my entire family. Yeah. And if I was not guilty.
Exactly.
If I was guilty, then maybe I would probably, I don't know, fake it better than him.
Exactly. Even if a person is guilty, they would fake it to some extent. And I feel like in this case, I can just smell a lot of immaturity and a lot of, basically a lack of remorse. That's what I can sense.
Okay. I'm interested to know why, but okay.
We'll get to that. Investigators contacted Dr. Tarif Rafay's older brother, Arif Rafay, who lived in Toronto, Ontario at the time of the murders. He immediately traveled to Washington to see his deceased brother and his family. He said upon looking at the body of Tariq, his brother, he was shaken from top to bottom because of the brutality of the murder. According to the Globe and Mail, quote, Tariq was beaten so badly that his facial features were unrecognizable and his teeth were scattered around the bedroom, unquote.
No.
Yeah, he had a number done on him. Mm-hmm.
And Atif is saying this is a robbery.
Yeah.
And these are my two materialistic items that are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And my father's face is unrecognizable, teeth scattered everywhere.
Yep.
How brutal.
Yeah.
How personal.
It does not line up. It does not line up. Arif wanted to console his nephew Atif and be a shoulder for Atif to cry on. However, Atif was nowhere to be found. Furthermore, at the funeral of the three family members, which took place 3 days after the murders, Atif was a no-show.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So where was Atif? Well, let me tell you. He was on a Greyhound bus en route to Vancouver, Canada, where he would be unreachable by the investigating police in Seattle. So now keep in mind, he's basically on a bus going from one country to the other, and the investigation is happening in the US. So if he goes to Canada, technically he can't be touched.
Wow.
Yeah. While him and
Everything's confirmed just by this action.
yeah, it's very strange
Great. So he
behavior.
did it.
Very strange. While
I mean, he did it. That's why he's fleeing. That's why he's running. That's why he reacted the way he did. I mean, it's guilt.
Mhm.
It's pure
It's
guilt.
screaming guilt, right?
He left with Sebastian. Did they both flee?
Yes. Him and Sebastian both thought fleeing to Canada would allow them to avoid further questioning. But little did they know of what was to come. So, like, so far, we know that these boys have some strange behavior, starting from the call, the 911 call. But seriously, it's really not a good look for you to miss the funeral of your family members and then to flee the country while the case is under investigation. Like, I know we've said this before, but to me, it seems like guilt is pretty obvious. But you know what's funny? This case was not an open and shut case, and I will get to that.
I mean, like, if you look at the way he's behaving, just like you said, I mean, everyone deals with grief differently.
Mhm.
So maybe he was shocked. Maybe you could still explain, the laughing. Maybe you could explain, the unbothered responses or his attitude. But not showing up, even not showing up to the funeral for your family, maybe it was too much.
Maybe.
But I think what ties the knot is that the whole aspect of escaping,
Mhm.
leaving for Canada, being untouchable then. How can it not be an open and shut case?
Yeah, that's what I thought too when I heard this story. I was like, that seems so clear cut. But
Yeah.
because of the whole fleeing to Canada thing, it made this case complicated because now it's involving two countries. Detective Thompson dug deeper into the past of both Atif and Sebastian and learned some red flag items, such as how both the boys had broken into various homes of community members with stolen keys. And although nothing appeared to end violently with these incidences, they were still unsettling and causing fear amongst many people who knew both of the boys. Many neighbors and classmates that were interviewed said that Sebastian Burns was more feared by the community than Atif was. So it always seems like Sebastian seems to be the leader and Atif just kind of follows along. So
you're saying that they did commit smaller crimes, petty crimes?
Yeah, petty crimes where they would do break and enters
before that. And they never got punished for it?
No.
Nothing serious?
Nothing serious because they didn't steal anything. They basically
consequence.
would break in or they would have a key, which I don't actually know how they were able to get keys for people's homes. Like that's kind of bizarre, but they were able to maybe make copies of people's keys and then enter their homes. And I think it was just a thrill. Like I think it was just thrill for high school students, and the police, because there was no damage, they didn't get charged.
But that's how it starts,
Mhm.
right? Like you do it for the thrill and it's harmless first.
Yeah. But then it
And then look
escalates,
at,
right?
Yeah. God.
So because we both think that Atif and Sebastian are both guilty, although some will say otherwise, what do you think the motive could have been for Atif and Sebastian to annihilate the entire Rafay family?
It's always money. Money or revenge. Like you said, maybe the parents gave more attention to the sister, obviously, because of her needs.
Yeah.
Maybe it was revenge, jealousy, money, maybe a mix of all.
Yeah. Well, you nailed it. Some might be surprised by this. I wasn't. There was a $350,000 insurance policy on Atif's family, which investigators learned about shortly afterwards. And can you guess who the beneficiary was?
Let me guess. Atif?
Of course, Atif.
Atif and Atif alone?
Atif and Atif alone. You guessed it.
And Atif and Atif's sister And for him to be the sole beneficiary, that's why he didn't do anything to revive her or
Yeah,
help
because it could
her.
have been that the policy or the will or whatever had stated that if something happened to the parents, the money would go to the sister and the brother, right? That both their kids. But if the sister's out, then Atif gets everything by default.
Wow. And he must have said, "Oh, Sebastian, you help me," or it must have been Sebastian's plan, and Atif must have said, "Fine, you help me, you get half or 3/4 or whatever." Oh my God, for money.
Can you believe that somebody could go to this
Like
level?
you bash in your father's face, allegedly,
Yeah.
till his teeth fall out for money. Your sister, who you should love and protect, being, knowing her situation, that's
I know.
horrible.
Yeah, it's very sad.
That's horrible.
And then not just the insurance money, but Atif would also get ownership of the house that the family lived in. So he's winning left, right, and center here.
But I don't understand. Like in our religion, even if you don't have a will, because we follow Sharia law, which is the Islamic law, eventually Atif would have got 50% of everything that his parents own.
Yeah, eventually he would have gotten it anyways.
So why not just wait? Like, why did you have to kill your parents and your sister for money that is eventually yours? It's yours. It's your right. I don't get that mindset.
So I think I question the same thing.
It's like, no, I
I
want
question
now.
the same thing, and I think what my theory is that Atif probably knew that, right? Because he grew up in a Muslim household. He kind of knew what the rules were in terms of inheritance. But I think maybe he shared that information with Sebastian, and Sebastian could have devised this plan and been like, well, why not get it sooner? Why wait until they die a natural death? Because I feel like based on the history here and also like just how this case has started, Sebastian is definitely the one that's leading everything. And I personally don't think that Atif, being the smart, Cornell University goer, would be able to devise this kind of a gruesome plan on his own. I feel like he definitely got help, and he definitely got a push from no other than Sebastian.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think maybe again, because we haven't come to that part of why he's done it. Like we know it's for money, but why exactly, which I'm sure you'll get into. But it definitely does feel like Sebastian really cheered him on. Like any doubts that Atif probably had, Sebastian was like, no, focus on the prize. Focus on that. But that's crazy because that would have been yours either way. That's crazy.
So what do you think Atif did with the money upon making his claim on the policy?
Wait, what? He fled the country and he still received?
Yeah, they were still able to make a claim on the policy. It doesn't matter where you're living, but if there is a policy out there, you can make a claim.
The hell?
So this is what he did. He bought a convertible.
Okay,
he bought a convertible car and rented a home together with Sebastian in Vancouver. Yeah, in Vancouver. This kind of just highlights that point again that I made, that if he's renting a home with Sebastian, that means that Sebastian had something to gain from this too, right? So he was probably like, why don't you just, annihilate your family, and then, we can have all this money to ourselves or whatever. And I feel like Atif was probably like, okay, cool, I'm in. Like, I just think it was a plan that, it was an idea that Sebastian kind of put forth, and then Atif was like, yeah, okay, I'm down.
And also, the cultural difference. I think Sebastian probably at the age of 18, you're independent, you're on your own, versus Atif, who, in a Desi culture, we stay with our parents till we're married. And the son usually stays with his parents even after marriage. So I'm sure there's like pressure over there and control over there. And Sebastian probably fueled him by saying, dude, you don't need to live like this. Like, look at me, I answer
Yeah.
to nobody. Maybe he like played with that whole
And because
aspect. Probably that's why Atif was like, yeah, you're right. Why should I live under this pressure and rules? And you know how Desi parents are with the rules. So maybe that motivated him, and he said, I know I'm going to eventually get it, but if I can stay without rules, without my parents, without any responsibility of my sister even, then yeah. I mean, I kind of question his smartness. Cornell, okay. Right, okay. Yeah.
just to add to that, like if his parents were to suppose die a natural death, they most likely wouldn't die together unless it was a car accident or some kind of an accident where they're both gone, right? So it would take a while before Atif were to get that money because think of the succession here. Like the money, say the father died, natural reasons, it would go to the mom. If after the mom died, it would go to both the kids. So Atif would have to wait a long time. And if I know anything about our culture, I feel the parents would have probably put a bigger chunk of their estate to their daughter because she is most likely, she most likely wouldn't have gotten married. She would need the money for her health care and all that stuff. So I think Ate would have been left with a smaller piece of the pie. And when Sebastian talked to him about why don't you just get this sooner? Why don't we devise a plan where we can just have you be the owner of everything right away? I feel like he was probably like, yeah, that's true. Like, that's a good idea because otherwise I have to share it with my sister. Or maybe he would say, otherwise I would get a smaller chunk. So this way he got everything. He got the house, he got the insurance. And then you have to keep in mind, this family was a fairly well-to-do family. So they had a pretty nice house. He could even sell the house and that's all cash.
So he bought a convertible, which I'm sure they already had cars, right?
Possibly, I'm not sure.
And then they had a house, which eventually would have gone
That would have
to
gone to
Atif
Atif
anyway.
anyways, but that wasn't in Vancouver. That one was in
But then,
Bellevue.
okay, so it seems like it's allegedly, I feel like it seems like there's this whole aspect of I want to be independent, I want to live my life, I want to be with my best friend, live under his shadow, and have nothing to do with my parents and their daunting or their pressure or
Yeah, exactly.
all of that. Okay.
So in the home, a third friend was also added as a housemate. His name was Jimmy Mayoshi, and the three of them tried avoiding scrutiny as much as they could. However, Atif and Sebastian were under close watch. The boys thought that the police had their phones tapped, so they began to think that they could outsmart the police by talking in code. And at this point, money was direly needed by Atif and Sebastian because both boys wanted to produce and star in a film about their experiences. They had written
Oh
they
my
had written
God!
a fictionalized plot of what they considered to be their ordeals.
What ordeal? You put yourself in this ordeal. You killed your family for a convertible and a rented place which you can share with your three friends, and now you want to produce a movie about it?
I'm like, what I don't understand, this wasn't just a case of mistaken identity. Like, this was a murder investigation. And we're not just talking like, one family member. We're talking the entire family. How can you call this an ordeal? And why do you want to make a film on this? Like, is it bizarre?
It's bizarre, beyond bizarre. It's like the perpetrators were like, okay, this has happened with us. Let's make a movie and make more money out of it. And show yourself as what? What is his role in all of this?
That's what they're going to show. Because keep in mind, at this time, they have not been arrested. They have not been officially detained by the police. So they are technically suspects of a murder, but they're free. And to some people, they were thought to have gotten away with murder.
Right. They're probably very confident that they've escaped this whole situation. So why not make some money out of it as well, since they're so smart?
Yep. So let me tell you.
I'm really like, I'm like very eager to hear their punishment.
If it is them.
It is
Because, like
them.
I said, at this point, nothing's proven.
So, okay.
So this is where the case takes a unique turn, which would later result in legal battles in both the United States and Canada for years to come. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the RCMP, got involved in an unconventional way. They called this codename Project Estate. So this was an elaborate undercover sting operation by the RCMP in which undercover agents would build a relationship with the accused individuals to get them to confess to their crimes. At this time, investigators had full confidence that the boys were involved and that the mastermind must have been Sebastian. So this is how the sting operation went down.
Okay.
An undercover agent approached Sebastian first in a parking lot. He seemed like somewhat of an entrepreneur or businessman, and it appeared that he was locked out of his car and needed a ride back to his hotel. Sebastian, who saw that this man was in distress, was more than happy to give him a ride. This is all recorded in an interview directly from Sebastian himself, by the way. In an effort to thank Sebastian, the undercover agent asked Sebastian to stop at a nearby bar for a drink. And Sebastian was intrigued by how this stranger was taking an interest in him. While at the bar, Sebastian told the stranger that him and his friend Atif had written a story called The Great Despisers, and they needed funding to get the film under production. The Great Despisers.
The Great Despisers.
What a name. This is where the undercover agent told Sebastian that he knew someone who might be able to provide funding. Now, introducing Mr. Big. And just a side note, for safety reasons, we will leave the names of the agents out of this case. So this Mr. Big person was known by this stranger as a mobster or a crime boss. Now keep in mind, this stranger that's talking to Sebastian and this Mr. Big person are both undercover agents. So he introduced Sebastian to this crime boss, and then Sebastian was presented with an offer that he couldn't refuse, which included cash for the movie that they wanted to produce. Mr. Big asked the boys to do some work for him in an effort to earn the money. Sebastian and Jimmy were asked to go from bank to bank to withdraw money from one account and deposit it into another. This was how Mr. Big would launder his money, and this would also result in pay of $2,000 for 1 day's worth of work, which isn't a bad gig, I have to say. This went on for 3 months as an effort to gain mutual trust. The essence of the sting operation was to get Sebastian to confess to any of his and Atif's crimes, and if he did, Mr. Big would be able to use his connections to make any evidence against them disappear. If Sebastian didn't cooperate, his fate would end like the other person who was unalived because he crossed Mr. Big. Now, this was obviously a fictional person, but the undercover cops needed to instill fear in Sebastian's mind and push him to cooperate with Mr. Big. This is what makes the sting operation so controversial. Now, you're probably wondering, what about Atif? Well, we'll get to that shortly. Over the next few months, more pressure is put on Sebastian to confess to his crimes because Mr. Big confronts Sebastian with the Rafay family murders. He shows him phony documents that are totally made up, and this scares Sebastian to believe that the police have all the evidence they need in order to make an arrest. So about a year after the murders, seeing the documents, Sebastian caves and confesses. But this is where I'm going to end the first part of this case. I know, this is a cliffhanger, I get that. But in part 2, we will hear confessions of the boys firsthand, as well as details of what actually went down, the proceedings of the trial of this case. There are a lot more twists and turns in this case, and we're only really just getting started. So please join us again in part 2. But for now, Jihan, what are your thoughts so far?
I just can't believe you're leaving us here. Like, after a year, they finally find evidence and arrest him, and this is where you're leaving us at, Naz?
Yeah, because there's still a lot more to the case, so I figured since this is going to be a two-parter, this would be a good spot for us to break.
All right, great. I'm curious to know how exactly did this triple murder happen, and I definitely want to know
Yeah,
how
exactly.
long they
And
got punished for.
we'll get through all of that in part 2. But I hope you guys are just intrigued with this case and on the edges of your seat as I was when I first heard it.
I definitely am, so I'm sure our listeners are too.
Please, please, please leave us a comment or feedback. And don't forget to check us out on our socials at Crime Stories of Pakistan on Instagram, also on Threads, although we're not super active on there yet, but we will be. And you can also send us an email at crimestoriesofpakistan@hotmail.com for case suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us, guys. Come back for part 2. Thanks,
That's right.
Naz.
Thanks. And just remember, guys, embrace curiosity like a teddy bear. Keep your heart compassionate to one another. And please, please, please make good choices. Bye.
Bye.